All right, we are live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris. This is my channel, We Love Comics. And just in case you don't see it on the image, and just in case you don't see it in the title, this is not a comic book video, but still a video I would recommend as far as people who like speculation and investments, because this is definitely something that I have talked about before. And if you saw a video I did about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, if you're one of my power viewers that stay until the end of each video, and an ultra power viewer that stays till the end of each and every video that you click on, you will have seen that I've talked about this and something that I highly recommend to invest in. So once again, this is not a comic book video, so if you're getting mad that this is a comic channel and you're not seeing a comic book video, well, there's plenty of other channels to watch, so you've been warned. So, but while I'm waiting for people to come in, I just want to mention, don't forget to sign up for the cashback program. It is free to sign up. Just check any restrictions in your area. All you have to do is click on the link I provided in either the description, the live chat, or in the comment section of this video. And if you sign up and spend $25 or more within the first 90 days, you will get a $10 additional cash back. And if you sign up and pay for it, whatever it is, and it doesn't have to be comics, but it can be, if you do it within that 90-day period and you get that $10 cash back bonus, I get a one-time referral fee. So it helps my channel because I've been out of work now going on over 4 months. So every little bit is going to help. So this video is Silver Surfer approved. I want to tell everybody that this is my choice. Whether you agree with this or not is up to you. I'm not telling you what to buy. I am giving recommendations based on the things that I do. With any kind of speculation or investment, I always tell people, do your own research. Make sure you're purchasing things that you know about, because you are less likely to be at a loss or be taken advantage of if you know what you're doing. And there's always risks involved, so I cannot stress that enough. Make sure you wait for deals, make deals, trust your instincts, but know what you're investing in. Otherwise, you shouldn't really be doing it. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's put on the video camera. Don't forget, if you are in the live chat, stay until the end, because I always do a surprise subscriber shout out. If you want one, you don't even have to be a subscriber, but you do have to be in the live chat, because I picked somebody that is kind enough to join in the conversation. So even if you're not subscribed, come on in and entertain us with some of your postings. I may not read it during the live show, but I do afterwards, so I always read your comments. And I want to thank the many moderators that are keeping track of everything, and they really don't have to do much, because 99.99% of the time, everybody is awesome, and that's what I like about this part of my community in the comic book area. Alright, so I have 3 packages that I'm going to unbox. This is definitely something, like I said, it is something that I have done in one of my Ultra Power viewer specials. Now, what is that? Well, every now and then, I don't do it all the time, but every now and then on a video, I've been doing this more recently, I almost do what Marvel does at the end of movies, where they do, you know, a little teaser at the end. Now, every now and then, if you watch a video to its completion, I will do bonus rounds where I will, while most people have gone away, do extra content for those who are kind enough to stick around. Now again, I don't do that every video, but I do it every now and then, so it does pay to stay into the end. Because, like, for example, the comic books that I'm selling, and those videos are still up, so go check them out. Oh, that's cool. At the end of videos before those came out, I did a preview of the books before I did the sales, so you could actually purchase them before that video came out. So it does pay to stick around every now and then and at least check past what most people don't. So as of now, 24 people are here, so welcome 24. 7 of you like it, so I appreciate that. I haven't even shown you yet. And this is the first one. This is definitely Silver Surfer approved. So this is a 10-ounce bar of Scottsdale Silver, and they were kind enough to throw in a silver mercury dime. Now, is that a real silver dime, or is it one of those commemorative? Okay, it's a commemorative, but still a silver dime that they added in. Silver and gold are making, well, gold has hit all-time highs. It went parabolic for a little while. it's dipped down because there's always going to be corrections. If you know anything about investments, you always got to think long term, especially when it comes to physical metals. And there is a dip right now. Now, some of it, basically at least half of the silver that was lost during a couple of days where they hammered it with paper silver. You got to know the market to understand why it went down, because it's very hard to find the physical, especially at the spot price. And if you don't know what spot price is, you should not be investing in this until you do. But there's a saying, buy on the dips, because the prices you see are manipulated based on paper, SLV, and GLD, which basically, they're supposed to be silver and gold contracts. But for every 1 ounce of silver, or whatever amount they say is in one of their contracts, they sell 100 plus pieces of paper for that same piece. So all they have to do is, if they want to lower the price in the market, is they just pump a couple of million ounces of paper silver that's not backed by anything. Because if you actually research about the SLV and GLD, in the contract it says that even if you want to redeem your contract for the physical silver or the physical gold, they can give you cash instead and deny you what you're actually investing in, which defeats the whole purpose. So what's happening is there's starting to become a separation, and I've been telling people about this since 2011. I have plenty of gold and silver that I've been stacking waiting, because gold keeps up with inflation, so it will keep your dollars at the same level of what the current inflation and devaluation of your dollar is. Because if you don't know the dollar is currency and not money, again, you got to research this stuff. So there is now becoming a separation between the physical metal, and let me show a little closer, and the actual paper price. If you go on many websites for silver, and I could mention a couple. There's APMEX, APMEX.com. There's Modern Coin Mart. There is SilverTown.com. There is JM Bullion. There's a lot of different places. Goldmart.com. There's so many different places that you can go. You'll see most of the stuff is either not available or way over spot price, especially if you go to the U.S. Mint and try and order a Silver Eagle. They'll sell it to you for like $35 to $40. And there was a coin I was signed up for on the U.S. Mint website. I got notification 2 minutes after it was posted, so I only missed it by 2 minutes. Went to the website to buy, and it was limited to 1 coin per customer, per household. It was already sold out within 2 minutes. So the physical is starting to disappear. So I am buying lots of gold and silver bullion. This is only a 10 ounce, but still, I paid $310 for this. There's going to come a day, in my opinion, where people are going to wish for that price. Now again, if you do not know what you're doing, if you don't know what spot price is, if you don't know what SLV and GLD is, then do not just buy something just because I'm showing it. You really need to know your research of what you're doing, because this one, if you think I talk about the long game when it comes to comics, sometimes you have to wait over a decade for the silver and gold because it's being manipulated. Alright, so here's the next one. This is definitely something worth investing in my opinion. These are Silver Eagles. There are 5 in here. This one's still in the original bag. This is an uncirculated 2014 American Silver Eagle. The years don't matter, the condition doesn't matter. And here's the difference between, like, for example, this silver bar and a comic book. I could literally take this knife and scratch it up, and it will cause 0 deduction in price, unless I started shaving off a whole bunch of silver. Comic book, you take a corner 1/16 of an inch and bend it, you could lose hundreds of dollars. So the condition is irrelevant. But as you could see, the ones that I always get are in very nice condition. Because, you know, most people that don't know about it are going to be key on how it looks. But if you're selling it to a dealer or somebody that knows about it, like this one you could see, maybe you might not be able to see. There's a few little scratches on it and everything. And I just added a few on the back. Doesn't matter. It doesn't take away anything. So those are 5 silver eagles. I paid $164.79 because I bought at the dip, and trust me, if you look at the spot price now, it used to be silver would be about 10 cents to 25 cents, maybe $1.29 maximum over spot. Now it's like 4 or 5, in some places up to $9 over spot because it's harder to get. Now these are something I highly recommend. The person that sold these must not have known what they were selling. These are 5 1-ounce silver bars, but these are J.M. Mathy, or Mathy, silver bars. That is the marvel of the silver world. J.M. Mathy and Engelhard are the 2 primary silver bar companies well known around the world. These will always sell more than a generic silver bar. So this person sold these. I bought them at the lowest price available on eBay. He was selling these a little bit less than a generic bar. So for me, this was a no-brainer because, again, I do my research. So I know the difference between a J.M. Mathy bar and a bar from Apmex or Silvertown or a generic Buffalo Round. If you don't know what you're buying or you don't know what you're selling, you can end up... I mean, he could have sold these for about $50 more than what I paid for them. I paid $165 for these 5 1-ounce silver bars. They are still sealed with their serial number, all sequential. Now, I'm going to show you a little trick. And I paid, like I said, $165 for these. I'm going to show you a little bit about how you could tell if silver is real or fake. Now, you can tell sometimes by the way it looks, but there are times, especially with bigger bars, there are people who will drill it, fill it with lead, or some other metal like tungsten for gold, for example, and they'll take away the value because you'll see the outside. Now, the easiest ways to tell is you can do a magnet test. Look on other videos for that. I'm not going to go into full detail because a magnet will be different if this had other metals than silver. You can also know the weight. You can look up the weight of a silver bar, a 10-ounce silver bar, and weigh it. If it's off by a gram or 2, that's okay. But if it's supposed to be 20 grams to an ounce difference, there's something fishy. But here's a quick trick I'm going to show you. You balance it on your finger, and you take something. It might not work with that. Let me see if I can do it with this. You tap it with something metal, and you'll hear a bell ringing. It'll be a sustained ring. It's hard to do because the only thing I have close to me is this little dime, and it's not... let me see. Oh, actually, I can use the back of this. So let's see if I do it by the microphone. Let's see. Might not be able to. Yeah, it's too small for me to balance it with this. But what'll happen is, if this was not silver, it would just clank, like you were hitting a pipe. But real silver will have a bell resonance to it. It will be a sustained ding, and it will hold its vibration. So that's a quick way you can tell. So if you have especially when it comes to like 100-ounce bars of silver, which I do have, they can fill them with lead or other metals. So you have to know the weight, and you have to know little tricks like that where you can tell right away. There's a magnet trick, there's a couple of different things, and you can use chemical tests, but you don't even have to go that far. So those are the different things. This is something I would highly recommend you at least research. I've been studying the economy since 2011. I've researched the history of money since going back to the days of the Roman Empire. I cannot tell you how to live, nor will I ever. And what you do is up to you. But I am investing in physical gold and silver because I see the potential of a dangerous road with all the overprinting that the world is doing. All countries are connected to the US dollar, so all countries will be affected if there is a problem. Now, if you overprint something, think about a comic. I'll put it in speculation. Now, back in the 90s, they were printing comic books by the millions. A lot of them are not valuable anymore, or they're not as valuable as they could be if they were like today, where there's maybe 100,000, or some of the variants where there's 1,000 of them. Just imagine if there was a comic book that had 2 trillion of them made, which would mean everybody on the planet could have multiple copies. The demand would be gone. The value would disappear because everybody would be able to have it. They're printing money in that same fashion, and currency in that fashion. The US dollar, since the opening of the Federal Reserve in 1913, has lost over 96% of its purchasing power. So it is not that values of products are going up. When you see prices go up, it's the value of the dollar going down due to the overprinting, devaluing the currency, meaning you need more of it to make a purchase. The way they hide a lot of that is because the world, if you don't know about the petrodollar, again, you really need to research this stuff, but because the world uses the petrodollar, and I'm not going to go into explaining what that is, you need to do your own research, they put the US dollar all around the world. That keeps inflation regulated here by dispersing the currency all over the world due to the petrodollar. The world was taken off the gold standard in 1971, thanks to Richard Nixon, who said it was a temporary order, and that was back in 1971. Still hasn't been taken away. That's why, let's just say this was a regular silver dime, a 1964 silver dime. I could buy 2 gallons of gas with this dime. Not because of the 10-cent value, but because the $3 to $5 value of the silver content in the dime. So it shows the inflation. There's proof right there that if I was to use this dime in a store, I could probably buy a piece of bazooka gum if I'm lucky. I don't even know if they have that anymore, and if so, if it would be less than a dime. But let's assume a piece of bazooka gum, a single piece, was worth 10 cents. If this was just a regular dime, that's all I could buy with it. But if it was a 1964 dime, it has about $4 to $5 value because of the metal inside it. If this was a gold coin, 1/10 ounce gold coin, I would be able to buy Jordan sneakers or something else to that extent. So people really are not educated about this stuff. You don't get taught it in school. You don't get taught it in the news. You don't get taught it by your representatives of any government throughout the world. There's a reason for that. You cannot influence and profit off of those who are wise from their own research. So I'm not going to tell you to run out and just buy the first gold and silver that you see. Because again, if you do that without research, you are most likely going to be very, very upset. Because especially silver, it's very volatile. Which means, well, let's put it this way. I've been watching the market since 2011. Actually, no, since 2006. Got really serious into the financial part around 2011. The average move for silver in a day has been between 9 and maybe 20 cents. A 20-cent move in a day of silver is a great move. Last week it was moving $1, $2, $3, up to $4. That's a big move. But what goes up can go down. So it can go down just as fast. So people need to think long term when it comes to this stuff. Otherwise, you're going to have a heart attack every other day. So, again, if you don't know the difference between money and currency, and didn't even know there was a difference, if you don't know about the history of money, if you don't know about SLV and GLD, if you don't know about the petrodollar and what it's done to destroy the economy of all countries, do not buy any of this stuff without knowing it. If you don't know the weight and diameter of this Silver Eagle, you'll probably end up buying a fake on eBay and not know it until one day you say, oh, silver went up to, let's just argument's sake, $100 an ounce. I'm not guaranteeing that, but let's say it goes up to $100 an ounce and you go to a place and sell it and they say, oh, I'm sorry to tell you this is fake. Well, if you did not do your research, if you don't know the weight, you don't know the diameter, if you don't know how to do the tests, that's on you. So take responsibility. So this is definitely something I highly recommend. I'm not going to disclose how much gold and silver I have, but here's the key. Do not buy paper. Do not store it in a vault or keep it in your bank. There's a saying when it comes to gold and silver coins, if you do not hold it in your possession, you do not own it. Because if they ever shut down a bank and all your stuff is in a vault, well, you're not going to be able to get access to your bank. So what good is it? That's all I'm going to say about that. Do your own research. If you collect gold and silver, let me know. I guarantee you, anybody that's listening to this, whether they're watching it live or they're watching it later, anybody that also is a stacker, and again, that's a term, if you're collecting gold and silver and you have a lot of it, you're considered a stacker. I guarantee you there will be people that watch this that also collect gold and silver for the same reasons I do, and can attest in the comment section that everything I said is 100% accurate. So, I know what I'm talking about. And if you trust me, then what I am saying to you is, don't just buy something because, you know what, I like Chris, or I trust Chris, or it sounds reasonable, I'm just going to go out and buy the first silver coin I see. No. Do your research. Invest in your investments. You get what you put out. So if you want to be more likely to succeed, you want to do your research. But keep in mind, these kind of things can take years. Can even take decades. So if you cannot be patient, in my opinion, I don't think it's going to take decades anymore. With the volatility we're starting to see, and how quickly, even though they smashed it with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of paper contracts that are basically pieces of paper, it's like me selling this knife, and 100 people contact me and say, I would like to buy that knife. So I say to all 100 of you, okay, send me $10 for this knife, and you will own the rights to it. But I do not send any of the 100 this knife. What I do is I send them a piece of paper that says, you own this knife. So 100 people sent me $10 each because they thought they were buying this physical knife, and every one of them got a piece of paper that said, you own this knife, even though I still possess it. And if you read the contract, it says, if you try and redeem your contract for this knife, I can give you money back instead. So let's say 5 years after I sold this knife for $10, all of a sudden this knife is now worth $500. And every single person that had that contract said, wow, I only paid $10 for this knife. I have the contract that says I own this knife. I am going to redeem my contract for this $500 knife. And I tell you, I can send you your $10 back. Your original investment in cash. Oh, you didn't read the bylaws? You didn't read the print? Sorry. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. You signed a contract. If you signed something you did not read, that's not my fault. So I will be keeping the knife, I will be keeping all of your money, and you now have a piece of paper that's not even good enough to use as toilet paper. Once people start understanding that lie that's going on with the SLV and the GLD and places like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and all these people that are manipulating the market, and it influences the world, because the world is involved in this, it's not 1 or 2 or 3 countries. If you know a country that you've been told about in school, I promise you it is most likely in on this fix. That's the reason why no matter what side of any government that you choose to believe in, what do any branches of any government have in common? One, both sides of any party anywhere in the world are both very wealthy. And two, they got that wealth from stealing it from you. In my opinion, this is protection. They basically say gold is for kings, silver is for gentlemen, copper is for the poor, and debt is for slaves. What you take from that is up to you. So 21 people like this. So 21 smart investors have an idea of what I'm talking about, know what I'm talking about, and see this as good advice that I am telling you to research on your own. I'm not telling you to go out and buy anything. Many people are going to ignore this. Many people are not going to understand. Many people are just going to regurgitate what other people have said to them. And one day they will be a little disappointed that they chose to hitch their horse to the wrong wagon. What you do is up to you. And Fade to Black just said, I had questions about the SLV. You just answered them. Thanks. Not for me. And there you go. If you actually go look at the SLV and GLD contracts, it specifically says that even though you are investing in silver and they're holding that silver or gold in their vaults, and you get a certificate that says you own 100, 1,000, 1 million, 1 ounce of silver or whatever amount of gold, just to put it in perspective of the knife, all right? Let's say this is 1,000 ounces of silver that you've invested in by buying the SLV. So you go to a place like JP Morgan or wherever the SLV is sold. I don't know about that because I don't invest in it, so I don't care to waste my energy and knowledge on something that I'm never going to use to that extent. But let's say this is a 1,000-ounce bar of silver. Let's say the current price is $1 an ounce, just to make it easy. It's never going to be that low. It has not been that low since probably the 70s. But let's just assume, for argument's sake, for easy math, a 1,000-ounce bar, $1 an ounce silver, it cost you $1,000. So you go to them and say, hi, I'd like to invest in one 1,000-ounce bar of silver. So after fees, let's just say it's $1,100. Now, if you went to a silver bullion dealer and you bought a 1,000-ounce bar, they would deliver you the 1,000-ounce bar. You would have it in your possession. It is yours. But when you get the SLV or GLD, you are told, well, your 1,000 ounces of silver or your whatever amounts of gold is in our vault, safe and secure. We are giving you a receipt that you can redeem one day for that silver. But in the contract, it says that even if you say, all right, instead of me keep investing in it and everything and waiting for it to get higher and lower, I feel like today's the day I want to redeem my certificate for my 1,000 ounces of silver. And they tell you, oh, we're so sorry, we don't have your silver. Here is your original money back, or here's the amount that we feel that you are going to get. And you can't do anything because you signed a contract. So you never invested in silver. That is the scam of the paper price. So when you see what's happened with the recent prices of gold hitting all-time highs, the original all-time high was around $1,913 an ounce. It went over $2,000 an ounce recently, getting close to $2,100. And then they smashed it down. Now, in the stock market, if there's a crash, they have automatic stops that stop it from going, and they will pause the stock market for 15 minutes. After, I think, about 4 times, they stop trading for the day. Well, when gold all of a sudden dropped $100 in a day plus, there was no stop. They allowed it to happen. That wasn't because people said, oh, the economy's doing great. Everybody's doing productive. Businesses are coming back and the economy's wonderful. So we don't need gold as a hedge against protection or anything that is fear-based in the economy, because that's what most people buy gold for, in the doubt and fear about the economy. So the economy didn't all of a sudden improve. Look at what's going on in the world. Our congressmen are on vacation right now. They have lots of money, whether they're Democrat or Republican. They have lots of your money that they've stolen from you by tricking you to think that their side is righteous when they are both sitting at home right now counting your money and thanking you for being gullible enough to give it to them and allowing them to steal it. But the reason that gold dipped that far is because they just said, all right, we didn't add any more physical gold to our vaults. Let's just put out a bunch more contracts. Higher supply lowers the demand. But what's happening is smart people took those opportunities for those lower prices based on the manipulation of paper, went out and bought tons and tons of physical silver. Now, gold basically has been remelted. The same gold that you have in your possession could have been owned by a Roman noble person. Most of the gold, unless it was lost at sea or used in, little bits of your computers, is basically still here. Silver is an industrial metal. That's why I recommend it more than gold. It's a lot cheaper. If you don't know the difference between the gold-silver ratio, about in March when I bought about 40 ounces of silver then, I didn't have much money to buy it, but the gold-silver ratio was about 120 to 1, which meant you needed 120 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. The average lifetime history going back to the Roman Empire up until maybe 100 years ago was the average was about 16 to 1, which meant you only need 16 ounces of silver to buy 1 ounce of gold. So the manipulation is incredible. It's a magic trick. Look over here while we do over here. Governments are printing currency like there's no tomorrow. If you know about comics, if there are too much of a print run on a book, it loses its desirability unless it's something majorly important. Supply and demand. It's the same thing with currency. You cannot do it forever. And this is the advice I tell people. And the 24 that like this and the 39 that are still watching are going to be very happy if they're listening to this, and maybe it will entice them to start researching before making any purchases. You have to think of an economy throughout history that no matter what they do, if you have a government system that's based on corruption, and that happens in every government throughout history, eventually there are people that come to power that they only care about their friends, their career, and themselves, and not the people. You can only steal from the people so long before people say enough is enough, and it collapses in on itself. It's called the bubble. You've seen it with the dot-com bubble, with the real estate bubbles. Think of an economy like this. When you have a balloon and you continuously blow air into a balloon, you know that if you continuously blow air into a balloon, that eventually that balloon is going to pop. It's going to break. It's going to shatter. You do not know when that's going to happen. Why? Because a balloon has stretchability. So you are never going to know the exact moment when a balloon will pop. So you could be sitting, you ever do that as a kid, and I don't recommend doing it. You ever dare one of your friends when you were a little kid, because I did it, to keep blowing into a balloon, and you see it getting wider and wider, and all of a sudden it blows up in your face, and it scares the living daylights out of you? Why? Because as you see it expand, you're like, oh, it can't go any further than this. And then, oh, it can't go any further than this, and oh, here it comes, and oh, and then by the time you stop thinking about it, it blows up in your face. Economies throughout history are the same way, because all economies start out with physical gold and silver, which you have to mine. In other words, it takes, the reason that physical gold and silver has monetary value is it took man hours and energy to be able to get it from the ground. It wasn't like you could just take a leaf off the ground. At one point, they tried to use seashells as currency. At one point, there was currency about tulips. Believe it or not, if you look that up, at a certain point in history over in Europe, currency was by your tulips. And yes, I'm talking about the flowers, not your tulips. But for the main part of history going back to the Roman Empire, governments would start out with physical gold and silver. The reason that gold is more valuable is there's less of it and it's harder to acquire. Silver's a little bit easier, copper's a lot easier, lead is a lot easier, and so on. So the easier it is to get a metal, the less valuable it is. So gold is one of the most expensive because it's the rarest and hardest to get. And that's what they talk about, the gold and silver ratio. Right now, the gold to silver ratio is somewhere around like 85 to 1. But if you talk to a miner, and I'm not talking about a child, I'm talking about a person that has mines of gold and silver, they're saying on average, when they are digging the metal out of the ground, the ratio is about 6 to 8 to 1. So it's selling at around 85 to 1, but it's being mined out of the mines at about 6, 7, or 8 to 1. The manipulation is absolutely insane. So let's go back to every country with every currency throughout history to the Roman Empire. Like I said, they all start with physical gold and silver. That's why you'll see, even in this country, in the United States of America Corporation, if you don't know what that means, you might want to study that as well. It all started out with physical gold and silver coins. Well, if you know anything about, like if you watch an old Robin Hood movie where they have bags of coins are heavy. They're inconvenient. People did not have pockets for a very long time. So they started saying, all right, deposit your money into a bank, because back then it was considered money, because it was backed by labor. And we'll give you a receipt. That's how banks originally started. They just basically gave a receipt for your money that you deposited, for whatever fee they charged you to protect your wealth so you wouldn't be robbed. And what happened is, after a while, people, instead of going to the bank redeeming their gold, silver, copper, whatever, they started trading the certificates. That's how basically the paper dollar or whatever currency started. It actually started back in China. But that's how banks started. And then banks started realizing, wait a minute, people are depositing all of their gold, silver, metals in my vault, and nobody's really coming to take that money out. They're just taking the receipts that I give them and using them to exchange goods and services. What if I start printing more of those receipts, even if I don't have the metals to back it up in the bank? And as long as everybody doesn't come in at the same time, which they don't, and takes it all out, no one will discover my fraud. And that's what banks do to you. They legally only have to have about 10% of physical money in their bank and can distribute, well, it used to be paper currency, but now digital numbers. So countries start out with physical gold and silver. It started going then into paper currency. If you look back in the 1800s to early 1900s, you had gold and silver certificates. Like a $20 gold certificate meant that certificate meant that the bank supposedly had $20 worth of gold, which you could go to the bank and redeem. So it had value, because even though it was probably a 10 to 1 to 100 to 1 ratio, in other words, for every ounce of gold, they put out $100 to $1,000 worth of paper, which is still being dishonest, because it should be 1 to 1, but they stretched that out until eventually it got so hard to get the metals that they took that away. First thing to go is the gold certificate. But until I believe the 50s to 60s, you had silver certificate dollars. So if you ever saw like a 1954 dollar bill, it says silver certificate. It does not say Federal Reserve note, because that meant that it had to have silver, that you could literally go to the bank and say, hi, I have a $5 bill. I would like to redeem that for $5 worth of silver. Well, they took that away. And in 1964, I believe, they took the silver out of your dimes, out of your quarters, and out of your half dollars. Why? Because then they can use cheaper metals. They don't even put copper in pennies anymore, except for the outer layer. It's mostly zinc, which is cheaper than copper. So what they do is they start with gold, then they go to silver, then they go to copper, then they go to paper, and now they're going to digital, which means there is no fiscal responsibility. Because if you had currency that was backed by gold, you had to have the gold to make the currency, which meant you were limited by what you could acquire. Now, since it's backed by nothing around the world since 1971, thanks to Richard Nixon, who influenced the whole world because the whole world profits from this Ponzi scheme, they now can just type numbers into a screen. Now, even though it's harder to get bank loans now, let's say everything was normal. Let's say it's last year. And you go to a bank and say, "Hi, I would like to borrow $20,000 for a business." And let's just assume you get approved. Do they hand you $21 bills? Or $100 bills? Or $1,000 bills? No, what do? They type numbers into your account. There you go, there's your $20,000. Now, you have to repay that loan plus interest. Did you just type numbers into your account and give them to them? No. What did you have to do? Well, you had to work to create the money or the currency to put into your bank account and deliver to them. So they gave you nothing but numbers, backed by nothing, and you had to have your labor to create the currency to pay them back plus interest. It is one of the biggest lies and biggest scams for the past several centuries that people are unaware of. And I'm surprised YouTube isn't flagging this video. I'm sure they will demonetize it, but I don't care. So you really need to know, and this is just a sample of what I know. People assume that I am just some generic everyday comic book collector who makes videos. I am well versed in lots of things. I know a lot about quantum physics, quantum mechanics. I know a lot about spectrums of light. I know a lot about multiverses before MCU made it popular. I research lots of stuff. I don't always talk about it because I like to see how people assume about me before I disclose to them that I know a lot. And I help people. Now, again, I can't guarantee any of this stuff I have said as far as value is going to be accurate because anything can change. When it comes to speculation, unless you're involved in the scam, you don't know where it's going to go. And Michael just did a super chat. It says, "No reason, just a thank you." Well, technically that is a reason, so thank you for that. That was very nice of you. And a pleasant surprise. But this is what I want to say to you. You may not like me. You may not agree with my videos all the time. You may not approve of my methods. But one of the biggest things I try and do is share my experience with you to help you make a better decision on what could financially help you or just make you happy. Doesn't mean I always get it right, and that's one of the reasons why I say, even if you like me, even if you believe me, even if you think everything I said makes sense, if you do not research it, you only believe, you don't know. So I don't want you to believe in me. I want you to know what I say is true, if at the very least just to verify it, because there might have been something that I said that might not have been as accurate or might have changed since I've researched it. Or I could have just made a mistake of saying something. Like, for example, I could have set a date wrong. The more you know yourself, the less that somebody else can manipulate you by something that may sound good or maybe somebody you trust. Because look at politicians throughout history. They all promise you the world when they want your vote. But they rarely ever deliver their promises. They will make excuses. If you know anything about symbolism, there is a reason why the bald eagle is a symbolic bird for this country. For hundreds of years, the average person could not read and write. That included kings. And most laws were created by the clergy. In other words, the Roman Empire. This is getting deep, but it's all factual. So how do you teach people about laws when the majority of people cannot read? Well, you had to use symbolism. Quick little symbolism we use today. If you see a light that's green in the middle of the road on top of where you're driving, and all of a sudden it goes from yellow to red, what does that mean? It means you're supposed to stop. Now, it doesn't say the word stop, but you know because the color changed from green to yellow to red, that's a symbol to stop. Okay? If you saw a yellow upside down triangle and it did not say anything else, what would it be? It would be yield. If you see on a window of a business, a cigarette with a circle and a line through it, what does that mean? That means no smoking. Well, again, it doesn't tell you it's a cigarette, and it doesn't say no smoking. It's just a symbol. So even a person that cannot read can see that image and know what it means. If you saw a bottle and it had a skull and crossbones on it, you probably don't want to drink it because that's the symbol for poison. So even if it didn't say the word poison, you can look at that and say, oh, I should not drink that. I don't know how to read, but I know that picture. And a skull is not good. The bald eagle has wings, okay? And they tend to show the eagle with the wings apart. Now, what do you have? You have a left wing and you have a right wing. Does that sound familiar in this particular form of government here in the United States of America Corporation? Now, the reason that they usually have the eagle with the wings spread is it gives the illusion of separation. But if you follow those wings in, both left wing and right wing, they connect to the same entity. So it's like watching, well, I used to watch the WWE before it became a soap opera. But if you watch wrestling, you'll have the good guy and the bad guy that when the cameras are on, they're fighting one another. They hate each other. But when the cameras are off, they're backstage drinking beer, going out partying. That's why you'll always see in any politics, they'll say, oh, my good friend on the other side of the aisle, because they really are good friends. And there are no poor politicians. And where do they get their money from? Well, special interests for one, corporations and Wall Street for other, but the third main one is you. So all those people, whether you're left, right, central, whether you're Democrat, Republican, communist, fascist, whatever, you're all being manipulated. They're overprinting money currency throughout the world. Think of it like a comic book. If you have a comic book that has 1 trillion, 2 trillion copies, it ain't going to be worth nothing because everybody can acquire at least one. What they're doing is going to do what has happened throughout history. We'll put it this way. There have been thousands upon thousands of different currencies from different countries throughout the millennia. And every single one of them has failed. 100% failure rate for every single currency. Because again, they start with gold and silver, which you have to mine. Then they take away or reduce the metals, which makes it easier. But it loses the value. Because that's why you could buy a piece of aluminum foil for about $5. If you had if you had gold foil, that same amount, it would probably cost you about 50 to 100 grand. So the metal is based on how easy it is to mine. Just like dirt. You can get dirt anywhere. That's why it's called dirt cheap. Manure, you can get anywhere. That's why you're not going to see manure or dirt ever go to $50,000 an ounce, because you can get it anywhere. Leaves, you can get anywhere. Gold, good luck trying to find it. Walk down the street, dig a hole in the ground, and tell me how much gold you find. So countries start with the actual good concept. Then, out of convenience, they say, we'll hold on to the metals because, you don't have pockets and gold and silver is heavy. Just put it in a vault. We'll give you a receipt. Trust us. We know what we're doing. We're not going to take advantage of you. And you're going to have paper dollars that you could fold up, put in your pocket, put in your wallet. A lot easier, isn't it? Because we care about you. And then they take the silver away after decades of you used to that piece of paper. So the only difference is a silver certificate and a Federal Reserve note. The only difference is those couple of words. Everything else is meant to look the same. Now I'm gonna educate you. This is a 1 ounce silver eagle. Okay? This is a 10 ounce silver bar. Now let me ask you, ladies and gentlemen, which one is more valuable? The 1 ounce of silver or the 10 ounce of silver? Now it's going to sound like a ridiculous question, but think about it. 1 ounce of silver or 10 ounces of silver? Which is more valuable? Well, it would be the 10 ounce of silver. Why? Because there's more silver in the 10 ounce than the 1 ounce. Makes sense, right? Okay. There's a reason why I said that. What is the difference between a $1 bill and a $10 bill? The only difference is they write an extra zero on the same piece of paper and put a different picture of another president on it. They're not backed by anything. They are the same size, the same weight. They have no distinction. Just like the difference between a $1 bill and a $1 million bill. There's a difference in the physical. There is no difference in the money. So for me to have the value of this 10 ounce over this 1 ounce, I had to get 9 more ounces of this to equal this. Your currency, no matter where you are in the world, each piece of paper is the same piece of paper made from the same cloth or whatever material they use. They might put some fancy little designs on it, but the only difference is they have a number. And now they don't even want to do that. They want you to get used to Bitcoin and digital currencies so they can get rid of making any of the paper and just put digital currency in your file. Now, that means they have total control of what you buy. I can go to somebody and say, you know what, I want to buy something. This is worth, let's say it's roughly about $30 right now. You're selling a video game at a yard sale for $30 that I want, but I don't have the money. And I say, you know what, I got this $30 silver coin. I know that you collect silver coins. I'll trade you the silver coin for that video game. And they say yes. There's no receipt. Or let's just say you see that video game for $30 and say, hey, I'll give you $30 in cash for that. Or maybe $20 in cash. You ever hear of the term off the books? It's technically illegal. That means you're not reporting it to the government. They cannot know, and they will not know that you did that transaction, whether you did it via trade or you did it via currency. But if all of a sudden there is no more currency and they have only digital numbers, and I say to that person at the yard sale, I would like to buy that video game for $30, type, send, the government now knows the transaction can tax you. And if they want to shut off your digital numbers, they can do it. They use convenience to trick people. They've done it throughout history. And 99.9% of the people will fall for it hook, line, and sinker like they've done for century upon century upon century upon century. Here's the difference between the Roman Empire and today. Back in the days of the Roman Empire, they would start creating debt to the point where it was unpayable. You know what they did? They wiped out the debt and started over again. So they said to everybody, all right, it's gotten to the point where we cannot pay it back no matter what we do. If we continue that, it's going to collapse and people are not going to be very friendly and happy towards us. So what we're going to do is, debt's gone, it no longer exists, you don't owe us anything, thank you, we'll start over again, have a great day. They're not doing that here. Haven't done that in a very long time. So like I said, you could like me or not like me, I don't care. I mean, of course, I appreciate those who like me, but I don't care about the ones that hate me, because most of them are trying to fill a void in themselves that they could never fill because they are too scared to actually ever make themselves a better person by learning what is causing their pain. And instead of causing the pain from the inside to be dealt with, they try and project it on others, which I no longer accept anymore. I bounce it off. I want you to succeed just as well. Because if you succeed, then I succeed, we all succeed. And that's what the world should be. That's true diversity. That's true unity. I'm not selling you any of my gold and silver. You're not buying it from me. So I don't make any money whether you buy it or not. And do not base things on fear. Because it doesn't have to be an end-of-the-world scenario. You can have a hurricane come by, or just a simple power outage because some drunk driver hit a pole down your street and knocked out the power grid. If you have solar panels, for example, or if you have battery-operated or gasoline-generated generators, you're not going to have to worry about your food going bad. So it's not always about an end-of-the-world scenario, even though those that may follow people like Alex Jones, who is basically first-level awakening, and is a fearmonger because he sells a lot of stuff. He gets you scared and then sells you a lot of stuff. You don't want to base things on fear, because then you're doing it for the wrong reasons and you will never be happy. You will survive, you will not live. And in this world today, the world is teaching you to survive. You're not living. And if somebody wants to get mad at me that even though I've been out of a job for 4 months, even though I should be one of the people highly concerned about what's going on in the world, because I've almost died from lung problems several times in my life. I even have a video on this channel back in November when I was in the hospital for 5 days and had to be carried via ambulance because I was dying on my floor. I should be really concerned about this, and yet I'm not. You're entitled to your opinions, but your opinions do not create fact, whether it sounds good or not. Both sides of this coin, both heads and tails, seem different on each side, but it's the same coin. Same thing with every government. But they sucker the people into fighting amongst themselves, because if you ever read the book The Art of War, which is a book that has been from the Chinese, I forget what dynasty it was, back I think around the 13th century, that even generals use to this day. The main thing is if you want a small army to be able to defeat a bigger army, you have to have the bigger army fight amongst themselves. It's called divide and conquer. If you look everywhere in the world, you're being split apart by your race, by your gender, by your sexuality, by your income, by your race, by your religion, by your politics. And then Coke or Pepsi, Marvel or DC, Nintendo, PlayStation or Xbox, salt or pepper, rap or heavy metal. See all the divisions everywhere? Somebody will hate me because I'm wearing a New York Yankee hat. Let's say somebody in Boston will hate me because of this symbol on my hat. Where's the humanity? Divide and conquer has never been stronger, but it does not have to affect you. So yes, even though I've been out of work for 4 months, and yes, I do not have millions or thousands of dollars in my bank account, and yes, I am one of the people that could be highly susceptible to what's going on in this world due to my medical history. And yet, I'm still happy, I'm still prospering, and I will be doing very well in the next few years because I prepared based on my research and my patience and my motivation for decades. So if somebody wants to hate me or be jealous of me because I put in all that effort over all those years and they chose not to, and they're now hearing something that they should have paid attention to decades ago and chose not to, you can either continue to hate the messenger or listen to the message because it's not too late yet. Or you could just say it's full of garbage, ignore it all, and take your chances. But I don't base things anymore on fear, because I understand, or what I say on my other channel is understand, that you have more control over your environment than you will ever be told. And as a matter of fact, you are so powerful you can shut off your power. People don't know about quantum physics, they don't know about energy, they don't know how that even light has consciousness. All you have to do is look up the double slit experiment, and they've discovered, just from the sake of observing a particle of energy, it will convert to a wave-like pattern just by looking at it and observing it. In other words, it changes, and it goes, instead of a random known projective shot, dispersed to a point where you cannot predict where it's going to be, just by the only difference is observing. You change your world through observation. Your feelings and heart are the director of the movie. And notice the video gets paused, but you can still hear my audio. That's why they always say follow your heart, trust your instincts. Many people don't, because you're told that's silly, that's ridiculous, it's crazy, it's conspiracy theory. There's going to be many people that are going to thumb down this video because they're going to think it's the most ridiculous stuff I'm talking about. They will never know what their potential is. You get your whole life depressed and saying, woe is me, and angry at the world. Guess what? The world is going to give you everything that's going to make you angry and fearful and depressed. That's not a coincidence. The world is made of light and magnetism. That's why you attract things to you, even things you don't want, because you don't understand. And there goes my computer. Thanks for listening.